your call.
You got Megan. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing all right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Hi.
Okay, hi. So I was calling in to tell you guys that I pretty much think you completely rock.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We think you rock.
I think you're right.
And my question was about any book recommendations that you could give me. I've read a lot of atheist books already. I mean, I've read books by Richard Dawkins and Michael Shermer. I haven't read anything by Hitchens yet, but I'm got a couple in my Amazon wish list. But I like a book, something to help me be a better skeptic in general, not just an atheist. Better, you know.
Let's go back and forth. You do one, then I'll do one, and you let us know if you've read them or not. But yeah, these are.
Wait, did you already say Carl Sagan,
No.
Demon Haunted World?
No.
That's my favorite.
I'm
glad you did.
Yeah, there's actually that one and a second Carl Sagan book that's newer that was actually edited from lectures that specifically addressed religion. His wife Andrea put it together. It's called The Varieties of Scientific Experience. Both of those Sagan books I'd highly recommend. Enumeracy?
Okay. I was going to, I haven't read it yet, but I hear that John Allen Paulus's new book,
Irreligious,
is, I've heard him interviewed on it, and it sounds like the right kind of thing.
Yeah, but with regard to like general knowledge and skepticism, Enumeracy is one of the top two books I recommend every time. There's nothing in there that is atheistic or in any way. It's a look at how bad we are at math, how poor we are at understanding both vast numbers and probabilities, and how bad we are at assessing things, how much we rely on common knowledge, inference, induction, and how this can be a good thing. But going back to what I was saying just before we took the call, it's all about how you develop the tool set to allow you to make the good decisions. You know, when somebody comes up and says, "Oh, you're just not going to believe this. I was abducted by aliens last night." My answer is, "You're right. I don't believe it. Tell me more and give me more information, and let's look at the claims and see if there's not a more reasonable solution. If there's not a way to implement, Occam's razor to eliminate leaping to little gray men from, someplace else that abducted you."
I have another recommendation, and it's not really a book about being skeptical, but it happens all the time in the book. It's Richard Feynman's Memoirs, Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman. I mean, really, it's just sort of an autobiography told in very funny little anecdotes, and so a lot of it is just the life and times of this Nobel Prize-winning physicist. But this is the book where he wrote about the concept of cargo cult science, I believe, which I've quoted many times on the show. And he also, as he goes, as he recaps his life, he talks about times when he had to deal with students who sort of uncritically accepted the things that they were being taught without understanding them, and how that makes them a bad candidate for an actual scientist. He talks about how he looked into hypnotism and how he found out his father helped him figure out a magic act. So I'm a fan of that one.
And I guess finally, since we don't want to pull off an entire, huge reading list, if you want to go back in time a little bit, and I find this interesting, we've lost a lot of ground, and by we, I mean humanity on the whole, in part because of things that religions have done, and I've talked before about the destruction of the Library at Alexandria, which there's no way to really tell how far that may have actually set us back, because that was at a time when knowledge actually was fairly easily lost. It's not as easy to lose knowledge now. But even in the 19th century, the views in America of freethinkers, or the view of freethinkers, was considerably better than it is now. And you have great orators and essayists like one of my heroes, Colonel Robert Greene Ingersoll, who speaks out against the Bible, against religion, against Christianity specifically, but also on the general, speaks out in favor of things like an 8-hour work week, who speaks at the Republican National Convention, who has debates and friendly rivalries with pastors around. What we're seeing now with the newer books is kind of a fallback to some of the stuff that was happening in the 19th century. And there's a book from 1841, I think, by Charles Mackay called Extraordinary Popular Delusions and the Madness of Crowds. And it goes into detail on delusions and shared delusions and what was popular then. And it's shocking how many of those things still are around in some form or another. So it's kind of a good way to help build up the baloney detection kit that Sagan would advocate. So.
Yeah.
Hi, that sounds really interesting, actually. I've got one I'm reading right now that's called Discarded Science.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about ideas that seemed like a good idea at the time, like about how we've progressed from thinking blood was continually produced in the liver to understanding how things really work.
That'd actually be cool. Does it go into things like phrenology, checking the bumps on people's heads, and other ideas like that, the ether theory? And
I believe it does. It definitely goes into the luminiferous ether. I've just finished the first chapter, which was all about the age of the Earth and the plate tectonics, things that preceded plate tectonics.
That sounds great. Who's the author?
Yeah, who's the author?
The author is John Grant.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'll look that up and add it to my list. So you helped us out, too, because I haven't read that.
I'm glad. I just wanted to say again that, I mean, you guys are really awesome. I'm actually calling from out of the country through a Skype number, and I don't have too many people over here that I can, like, talk with in English, and listening to this show every week is just kind of a little bit of a lifesaver for me, I guess.
Oh.
Where are you?
I'm in Hokkaido.
Oh.
Where?
Hokkaido, Japan.
Oh, okay.
We have, there are other listeners who've written us from Japan.
Really?
Americans in Japan. I tell you,
Send an
this
email.
would be a good time to remind people that you can email the show using the address tv@atheist-community.org. That goes to myself, the co-host, and everybody behind the scenes. And Megan, if you want to, you can email me. And if there are other listeners in Japan right now that are looking for other people, so they don't feel so alone.
2 weeks ago we had Steve, who's an Australian in Japan, writing to us saying.
So maybe we can connect some people in places where it's difficult for people to do it themselves. But please don't hesitate to call in when you want to, or drop us an email, or have a discussion. That's the big reason we do this, and I'm very happy and touched to hear that what we're doing has had a positive effect on your life there in Japan, and we hope things go really well for you.
Here's Jason in Japan as a U.S. expatriate.
Yeah. So definitely drop us an email anytime you want, and thanks a lot for calling, Megan. We really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I guess I could have left her on hold since the lines aren't full yet.
Yeah, that
would have
true.
been nice. But we'll go ahead and continue with the Dominionism thing. As a reminder, after the show's over, we go to dinner at Threadgill's at 301 West Riverside Drive. We're on until 4:30, which is about 30 minutes away, and we're down there around 5 o'clock. Any atheist or atheist-friendly person is welcome to join us. And beginning October 5th, we're moving to our new time and channel. It's channel 16 on cable, both Time Warner and Grande. Sundays from 4:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. I realize now that some of the people, even local in Austin, despite the fact that we've announced it a number of times, don't have any idea when we're on, because Channel Austin will rerun the show at different times and sometimes on different channels. So I'll occasionally get an email from somebody who said, "Hey, I saw your show last week and you talked about this," and really it was a show from
3 years ago,
3-4 weeks ago, or whatever. But so October 5th, there's a new time in channel 16, 4:30 to 6 p.m. But for those of you who aren't watching live, you probably won't notice any change at all. We'll still get the podcast out. We'll still get the Google video up. And you can find out more about that at atheist-experience.com.
Excellent. I don't really have too much more to go over, so it disturbs me that we have empty lines. Call in, guys. Although I do have several articles that I could just start reading if we get desperate. This one comes from an article called Theocratic Dominionism Gains Influence. It's an article from publiceye.org, and one of the bits of the article outlines the Christian Reconstructionist view of capital punishment, which is, of course, an interesting question if you think about, some of the laws in the Bible. Epitomizing the Reconstructionist idea of biblical warfare is the centrality of capital punishment under biblical law. Doctrinal leaders, such as notably Rushdoony, North, and Bonson, call for the death penalty for a wide range of crimes in addition to such contemporary capital crimes as rape, kidnapping, and murder. Death is also the punishment for apostasy, that is, abandonment of the faith, heresy, blasphemy, witchcraft, astrology, adultery, sodomy or homosexuality, incest, striking a parent, incorrigible juvenile delinquency, and, in the case of women, unchastity before marriage.
Wait, can you read that off again so I can figure out how many of those I've actually done?
Apostasy,
Oh, yeah.
heresy,
Yeah.
blasphemy,
You bet.
witchcraft,
No.
astrology,
No.
adultery,
No.
sodomy or homosexuality.
As long as there's an or in there? Yes.
Oh, okay. Incest,
No.
good. Striking a parent,
Never.
incorrigible juvenile delinquency,
Well, you'd have to ask my parents. I don't know how incorrigible I was, but
and for women, unchastity before marriage. That doesn't apply to you.
it doesn't
'cause
apply to me.
You're a man, so...
Evidently, I got some work to do,
Right.
but I'm pretty much doomed on all counts, I would say.
Uh-huh. Well, unless you're going to work on the incest.
No thanks.
Didn't think so. According to Gary North, women who have abortions should be publicly executed,
Nice.
along with those who advise them to abort their children.
Nice. What about the people who advise those people to advise them to have abortion?
Well, we could ripple out and just kill all the pro-choicers in the country. That would be, efficient. Rushdoony concludes, God's government prevails and his alternatives are clear-cut. Either men and nations obey his laws or God invokes the death penalty against them. Reconstructionists insist that the death penalty is the maximum, not necessarily the mandatory penalty. However, such judgments may depend less on biblical principles than on which faction gains power in the theocratic republic. The potential for bloodthirsty episodes on the order of the Salem witchcraft trials or the Spanish Inquisition is inadvertently revealed by Reconstructionist theologian Reverend Ray Sutton, who claims that the reconstructed biblical theocracies would be happy places to which people would flock because capital punishment is one of the best evangelical tools of a society.
Nice. I'm so tempted. That group that was going to try and move all of the Christians to South Carolina or whatever.
Get some.
I'm tempted to give them a state.
Yeah.
And let's give them a decent state. And just, you guys move everything there and set up your government. And let's just see how well it goes.
I would like to see it play out. I just wouldn't like to displace all the people who already live there.
Yeah, my big objection is that while I'd like to see, we can't run the experiment. While I'd like to see it play out to some extent, I care enough about their kids that I wouldn't want to subject their kids to that.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of nightmares about, hey, I'm stuck in South Carolina with my snake-handling, second-coming nut-job parents, and I'd really like to get out. But the laws of our new country prevent me from doing that. And I'm pretty sure that the secular, rational world would end up going to war with these nut-jobs in order to try and save the kids, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think, you're free to start a theocracy, but try somewhere other than the United States.
And by the way, we've got kind of full lines, but okay, now the notes are coming in.
Okay. Just the end of this passage from the article. The biblically approved methods of execution include burning at the stake, for example, stoning, hanging, and the sword. Gary North, the self-described economist of Reconstructionism, prefers stoning because, among other things, stones are cheap, plentiful, and convenient. Punishment for non-capital crimes generally involve whipping, restitution in the form of indentured servitude, so they want slavery, or slavery.
Yeah.
Just in case that last one wasn't literal enough for you. Prisons would likely only be temporary holding tanks prior to the imposition of the actual sentence.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it's wow. See, stoning is one of those things. I mean, without going into detail the specifics of kind of my stance on capital punishment, but if you take a look at different types of capital punishment, I certainly think that whether you're opposed to it or not, you could probably be okay with the fact that some sorts of capital punishment are more humane and less painful to the individual than others.
I would think so.
Yeah, I mean, putting somebody to sleep would probably be preferable from, I don't know, slicing them up bit by bit. Electric shock is probably more painful than many of the other ways. Stoning, to me, unless you start off with a really big rock and just crush the head right off the bat, would seem to be one of the most strung out, painful...
I mean, you hear people raising an outcry over beheadings in other countries.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of on the tame end of the execution scale,
You know, at least if we're going to calculate how much pain an individual suffers, beheading, if it's actually done right, pretty quick and not much pain experienced, if any. Throwing rocks at people?
Small rocks. I mean,
ones that float.
medium-sized rocks.
The ones that float.
Yes. Are there any women here today? No.
All right, so we got full lines. We want to take calls. We got about 25 minutes left, and